Well, the hour being 1 o'clock, I'll call this regular meeting of Town Council to order this 10th day of August, 2020. The first thing on the agenda is, of course, is the agenda. Is there anything, any additions or deletions that might be required? No? Then I would entertain a motion to accept the agenda.
Your worship, I would make that motion.
Thank you, Councillor Hill. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. First thing on the agenda is to adopt the regular meeting of council of July 27th. Would someone like to move?
I so move.
Thank you. Any errors or omissions to be noted? No? All in favor of the motion? Carried. Thank you. All right. 4.1, we have a public notification bylaw in regards to bylaw 1644-2020. And I will hereby declare the public hearing for bylaw 1644-2200 or 2020 to order or open. The order of business will be that the administration will introduce the bylaw, and then after her introduction, there will be a call of support for the bylaw, and after that will be a call for to hear from anyone who's in opposition to that bylaw, and then we will proceed with questions after and clarification by administration if necessary. So I will call on administration to introduce this bylaw.
Okay, so bylaw 1644 is a bylaw that was initiated by administration to allow for the town's website to function as the primary means of public notification for anything required to be advertised under section 606 of the MGA. Changes made to the MGA in recent years have allowed for this change, and it is the opinion of staff that the website being the primary mechanism for fulfilling the legal requirements for public notification to be the most effective. Administration will continue to utilize other forms of communication, including the newspaper, the town voice within the newspaper, social media, and physical signage, as is deemed most appropriate to educate and inform citizens. However, the bylaw does allow that all of the prescribed legislative notifications would be housed on the town's website.
Okay, have you had any mail-ins or anything brought to your attention in support? Okay. All right, is there anyone here that would like to speak in favor of this? Yes, we're online now, sir. Pardon? Yeah?
Thank you for having me.
Just hang on. Yep, let's get the connection picture made.
It's good? I can speak?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for having me. I have to go hay soon. I'm in favor of going online, newspaper. We have to make small steps first, but I believe moderation is the key. If we're still using paper, then we're still destroying trees. And so I feel very strongly, this is why I'm in a gorilla suit, this is why I'm wearing a bandana with a tree on it, that we must use moderation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Your name for the record?
Josh Robinson.
Anyone else to speak in favor of the bylaw proposal? No? If Nobody else, and I would invite anyone that would like to speak in opposition to the bylaw.
Can I sit?
Sure.
Thank you. My name is Chuck Blanchard. I live at 5045 59th Street in Innisfail. I've been a resident for 12 years. I'm not in favor of this bylaw as it's constituted currently for a couple of reasons, and I'd like to give you a little bit of background. First of all, an example of why online only doesn't work is probably best the example of the public hearing that was held last week on Dodds Lake. Completely digital, well run, really well done. Total attendance, what, 17 people? 17 people out of 7,000. Now, part of the problem is, first of all, notices for that meeting, a lot of them were done digitally. I've got a lot of friends who don't do digital well. We live in a town right now where we've probably got 40% of the population over 65. I'm a computer nerd, and I'd say of that 40% over 65, probably anywhere around 30 or 40% of them are completely digitally incapable. They rely on the newspaper. They rely on the written word. They rely on notices that would come to them. For example, if you were rezoning a property where you've got to notify the next door neighbors about the change in the rezoning and that kind of thing, they rely on that to be done in a form that they can deal with. So we come down to what you want to do today. It sounds great, but my understanding is that the cost savings here are quite insignificant. I've heard a number of $3,700 per annum. On the basis of a saving of $3,700 per annum, you're going to cut off some 15, 20, 30% of your population from having regular information about what's going on in our town. Is that really worth it for $3,700? You know, I'm not going to get snarky here, but I know that there's lots of money spent on other things here, and some of the people will have questions about where the money is spent, but that's not the point. The point is, aren't your people in this town, your voters, aren't they worth $3,700 a year? $300 a month? You know, to quote President Obama, that's chicken feed. You know, it really is. I'd like you to rethink this. I don't have any problem with the digital side. I think it's a good idea. And with the problems that we're having with COVID and everything, you're going to probably need to continue to do that to some level. But really, do you want to cut out part of your population for $3,700 a year? Thanks.
Mayor Romaine, through the delegation, and help me as well to understand, but I don't think our intent by any means is to cut out using the paper as a means of getting information out. This is just another means of getting the information out. That's my understanding.
It's written in here in the proposal that it would be considered the primary means of notification, but not necessarily the only means of notification. But is that correct, Megan? That's correct. So I mean, we still retain the option to advertise it in the paper as well.
And that is our intent.
Yeah, I kind of thought that way too. But anyone else in favor?
Just, Your Worship, can I just ask Megan a question, just to clarify more what Councillor Carrot was saying? So if we had a notification, say land use change or something, we'll put it online and likely still in the newspaper, or?
Correct, that would be the intent, but we
Yeah.
could either utilize our town voice page. Right now, we have to do quite a cryptic sort of legal notification that goes in the newspaper.
Yeah.
And just to clarify, like the Dodds Lake event that was held last week, that's not something that's legislated through the MGA. We can do whatever kind of advertising we think would be best for something like that. This is primarily things like rezonings, area structure plan changes, stuff like that that's covered under the MGA. And the MGA would still require for a rezoning or something that specifically affects an individual property. We would still have to mail out to the people right around there. This would just be the one that you see in the newspaper.
Your Worship, just to add to that, so my understanding, I think, is the same as what I've just heard. And just to correct the record, if somebody's delegation, Chuck, mentioned that last week's Dodds Lake meeting was a public hearing, that was just a public information session, so it wasn't, this is a public hearing. Yeah, so just wanted to correct that.
Okay, I think there was another hand up that wanted to speak. We'll give you mic.
Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I basically think, now this is my opinion, take it as you like, that you're making a big mistake to leave that information out of the paper, because half of this, well, I don't know half, but I know myself. I do not have a computer, a cell phone, or any digital item. I rely on that newspaper to get my information, and most of the senior citizens do as well. So if you leave that out of this paper, you are alienating a lot of people, and I don't think that's very fair. I think you should just go right ahead, this is my opinion, and leave it in the paper as the way it is, and I think you will be just fine. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Myrna, again, I'll ask if there's any questions we have of administration on the proposed bylaw. The way it indicates on here, it would be our primary, and if we absolutely had to, we could do it that way and be right in doing so in case there was some reason we couldn't get it into the paper or something, but
Your Worship, through to Megan. Megan, can you give us an example of a zoning bylaw that we would advertise? I'm under the impression that it would, the initial notification would still go in the paper, that there is going to be a public hearing on this bylaw change or whatever, and then the detail. And a good example, we have one on our agenda today, there's 5 or 6 pages of detail that if you want more from the paper, then you could go to a website or you could come and speak with our planning department. Is that's what I took away from our meeting last 2
So
weeks
I guess,
ago?
and I can even just do a little demonstration here. So right now, what goes in the newspaper, sorry, get this, has to state the legal land description. It has to state the, where people can view the bylaw. There's it's quite prescriptive as to all of the parameters that need to go in the paper in order to fulfill our legislative requirements. So the intent is not that we wouldn't put them in the paper. They would just be all of that legal stuff and some additional information would be put on the website, and then in the Town Voice we have council highlights. We have other ways that we can, upcoming events, things like that, and then people would go to the website for more information. That's not the one I want. Sorry. I'm just gonna pull one up quickly. But yes, there has been one in the paper the last 2 weeks. That's an example.
Your Worship, again through to Director Megan. So when it's not the intent to cut the paper out at all. It's the initial notification, right?
So it's basically, this is what ends up being in the paper, and there's usually sort of a black and white map that's in the middle of it that has the parcel shown. They're often quite difficult to figure out where in town they are if you're not very savvy in terms of which street numbers and that sort of thing show up on the map. But all of this text et cetera, has to go in there the way the MGA reads. So it would allow us to put a bunch of this information on the website and be able to do a more condensed, direction of people to the website for that information.
So for the people that don't have a computer or that aren't computer savvy,
Yeah.
that are reading the newspaper, how do they get notified? I guess that's my question. How
So
are they?
They
yeah.
would have to read the newspaper, and then I guess they would have to call in and
Okay,
get
so-
information or come in and get a paper copy.
So every public hearing's gonna be posted, but maybe not in this format, is that?
Correct.
Okay, so
Yeah.
that may eliminate some of the stir that's going on now.
Yeah, so that's the intent, is that we wouldn't abandon the newspaper as a mechanism. It would be more as seeing as an easier way, and that perhaps within the town voice or outside of sort of this legislative framework, we might be able to make that information a little more easily accessible, even in terms of what the map might look like or how we describe it, because sometimes it has to be these uses are being added as discretionary uses in this land use bylaw, as opposed to being able to maybe describe that in a little plainer language.
Oh, okay, well, thank you.
Question, Chuck?
You can probably hear me without.
Yeah.
Just so you can record me? Chuck Blanchard again. Very simply, paraphrasing what Megan just said, you're going to put an ad out, without any maps. And by paraphrasing what she just said, of course, the detail is quite technical, and for a lot of people, they wouldn't understand it. The only difference you'd have to add is a picture, and a picture is worth 1,000 words. A picture showing where the property is, like you've always done in the past, in the newspaper, would be fabulous, because then a person who doesn't read the digital stuff can look at it and say, oh, that's right next to my lot, or oh, that's over in such and such a subdivision, I'm not worried about it. But why delete the pictures? Why delete the maps?
Mayor Romaine, through to Megan and the delegation, I agree. I think we can put as much information into the paper as has been before. If people don't want it, that's fine. And I don't think, again, there's no intent of alienating any of the people that aren't online. I think we just need to make sure that we can get that information out as quickly and efficiently as possible moving forward into the future. But there's no intent here of not getting the public the information. So I agree, if we need to put maps, whatever the public wants in the paper, then that's the way I see it. But we still need to look forward to where we're going in the future, but still get stuff to the paper. It's fine.
So do we see a need to change the way it is written? How about CAO Becker, do you have anything?
I think, your worship, you're within the public hearing. I think you're gonna review the bylaws
Yeah.
forthcoming on the agenda. So I think, making sure you hear from the public regarding the public hearing, and then have administration in the public hearing format, and then you're gonna go into the bylaws here
Yeah,
shortly.
okay. Do we have another spokesperson back there? Yeah.
My name is Murray Elliott, and I'm the publisher of Mountain View Publishing. And you know why I'm here today. I don't think I have to explain that. The rationale is to save some money, understandable during these really tough economic times. I would argue, however, making information accessible online or elsewhere doesn't mean the public is necessarily well informed. Publishing public notices in a newspaper is vital to public engagement in the democratic process. We serve as a third-party verifier and offer a permanent printed record. The town of Innisfail's continued advertising support helps us pay for the considerable cost of distribution, postage, and reporting staff. In return, we offer a product that continues to be well-read. We've never reduced our coverage of Innisfail and area. The combined product, the Albertan, I would argue, even offers a better read paper because it's all inclusive of the area. The argument for the new format is challenging for residents to see because it gets lost with others is a first for me. I've never heard that before. The regular Innisfail advertisement placement is on page 4, and it's easily identified. Although the Innisfail website may be a good supplement to the newspaper, it won't replace the readable, third-party, permanent record we provide. I can assure you, readership in Innisfail area hasn't diminished. I know it's anecdotal, but firsthand, I get calls when we don't deliver the paper. We have a steady stream of letters to the editor, phone calls, and other reader engagement, including here today, to confirm that we're read. I value the strong relationship we have, and we have for years. The town is a very good customer. You help us pay our bills. But I am worried in passing such a bylaw, if this relationship sours with administration or council, the option to opt out of the newspaper completely is there, and I think we all stand to suffer. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Okay, any questions of?
Your worship, I guess through Megan again, I mean, everybody seems to think we're not going to use the newspaper anymore, and it's quite clear we are going to keep using the newspaper. So I'm not quite sure what we're missing here in the translation. That
It's the separate ad, correct? It's the separate
It's the separate standalone.
standalone ad.
but we're not stopping that.
Not necessarily, we would probably integrate into the town voice if we felt that was sufficient. But it's really that standalone ad that's highly legislated. It actually even affects our timelines at certain times. We know we always end up having to skip a council meeting in between a bylaw and a public hearing.
Yeah.
Because the MGA requires 2 full weeks of being circulated within a local newspaper, and because of the way our council meetings fall on Mondays and publishing dates fall on Tuesdays, we end up having to actually stagger so that we could potentially even shorten timelines for people in terms of utilizing the website. Again, not to say that it's not still in the paper,
Yeah.
but the legislative boxes that we need to tick would be done by getting it on the website.
But intentions may be to still put that picture, that map
We
in
could still very
the
well do
newspaper. I mean,
separate,
that's,
and
yeah, for sure.
It really isn't a financially motivated
Yeah.
Move.
Yeah.
It's more
Yeah.
making sure that we're fulfilling all of our requirements and not,
Yeah.
scrambling that all of a sudden, we missed or we had an error in the legal description that went in the paper. We gotta wait another 3 weeks before we can revisit this because the notification wasn't done properly or something.
Yeah, and I think having that support as well with the balance of the documents, right? I mean, I find those little maps sometimes, you think, where is that? And so I think we can do a better job of that without being under legislative guidelines. And so I don't feel that this is about paper or no paper. That's not how it's been presented to us.
Okay.
Okay, well, thank you. Is there anyone else out there that would like to speak? Myrna, did you have your hand up again? Or Chuck?
I apologize for taking a lot of time here, but I'm responding to the most recent comments here. Like, Megan is giving me the impression, and what she's saying is that there's some kind of a really tight deadline here, and if we happen to make a mistake and we didn't get the legal description right on an ad, a public notice or a public hearing ad, that we might be delayed as much as a week or 2 weeks. So what? If the public gets the information in the form that they can deal with, what does a week or 2 weeks matter? This isn't, you're not here for 3 days or 5 days or 2 years. You're here long-term. This is a long-term process. Let's not worry about the fact that you might make an error in the paper, because you might make an error on the digital side too. But the problem is, again, I go back to that simple thing. Make sure the population of this town is informed about what you're doing. That's what it's all about.
Okay. Thanks, Chuck. Okay, well, is there any other people out there that would like to say something? Myrna, did you want to say something else?
Well, ladies and gentlemen, you know I'm not politically correct. Never has been, never will be. So I'm going to come right off the top. You are very lucky to have that little newspaper. They're getting to be far and few between. You should be proud of that little newspaper, to be in this area, to inform everybody what's going on in this area. Why is it, here I go, why is it councils does not listen to the people? It's just not, it's all councils. They don't listen to the people anymore. Why is that?
Well-
These people need that newspaper the way it is. The few dollars that you spend on it is nothing. You spend lots of dollars on other things and think nothing of it. I'm ticked. I'm really ticked because you're even thinking of doing this. You should be happy to have that newspaper here. And not only that, I took a survey because I deliver that paper. And I took a survey to find out what the people thought of that paper. There was 3 that didn't like it. The rest like it, and they want it. If I miss somebody, I get a phone call, where's my paper? So think, people, think before you do something. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for your comments. Well, as you know, this will be opened up for discussion a little later on in the meeting here, so if you're interested to stay, there will be a consideration perhaps of a motion or discussion again at that point in time, so it gives us a little bit of time to think about it, and then we'll open it back up. So if there's no other questions or appeals for or against, I guess I would entertain a motion to close this public hearing.
I'll make that motion, Your Worship.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Bates. All in favor of the motion? Carried. Like I say, we will be opening it up for discussion and consideration a little later again in the meeting, so. Anyways, moving on to the first thing on administration's list is the RFD for the CAO's report.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just to be brief, I was away on vacation July 27th and 31st. There has been some work administratively through 13 Ways Economic Development Initiative, which you'll start to see the results and timelines being communicated out to you here probably in the next week or two. The administration has also, through council's direction, awarded the contract for the Aquatic Center Modernization Project to ACMA Architect and Design Firm out of Edmonton. Again, the timelines and the visioning session will be determined this coming Thursday. We have the kickoff meeting. Council will be included in that visioning session to start this process forward. Also, there's attached to this report is an invitation from the Welcoming and Inclusive Communities Committee number 4 for training opportunities or sessions coming up. I guess I'll have to look at it here, but so yeah, really that's the extent of my reports and some of the focus areas over the last couple of weeks. But just going down into the invitation, so the committee is inviting council and senior administration staff and Karen FCSS to racism and discrimination training. First session being August the 17th from 5 to 7:30 at the LLC, with the next session August 31st from 5 to 7:30 as well. So just to plant that seed with council, Vanessa will be reaching out to you or myself in her absence over the next few days, just to confirm your attendance at those training sessions. If there's any comments or questions regarding this report or anything else regarding administration or operations, I'd be happy to answer your questions.
Yeah, just have one question, Your Worship, through to the CAO. Those 2 training sessions, they're the same?
No, they're
They're
different.
successive?
They are.
Thank you. I understood when we heard them ask for some funding that they would put on multiple ones, not necessarily like that you had to follow every one. because not everybody obviously can catch the schedule, but
I think, Your Worship, Councillor Bates, this is built really for the committee and for council to attend. I believe there's other training, likely more for community forthcoming, but until we hear from them, this is a start.
thank you.
Any other questions? Well, would someone like to move we adopt the CAO's report?
Let's so move, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Harrison. No further discussion. All in favor of the motion? Carried. Thank you. As an information item, we have the council action control in front of us here. I did have one question of the CAO. Have we had any opportunity for a meeting with the Ski Hill Society yet? Or?
Your Worship, yeah, Stuart did report on that just briefly during open mic, basically, a couple of weeks ago, stating that we did meet with the Ski Hill group, and right now they're not asking anything of the town at this given time.
Okay, good.
One thing I forgot, Your Worship, regarding CAO report was if council wishes, Market on Main starts next Tuesday. There was an inquiry to the organizers about council hosting a booth, whether it's one councillor or 7 of you, maybe even administration staff to be present in a booth to take any community questions and maybe speak on the different initiatives of council. That is there for you if council wishes to proceed with that booth.
Do you need sorry, Your Worship, through the CEO, do you need a motion for that, or?
No, I think we have that handled based on council's feedback.
I think it's a great idea myself. For what length of time?
Again, it's 3:30 to 6:30 every
Okay.
Tuesday for the next 4 weeks. So again, who can make it, great, and if you can't, that's also okay. It gives you an opportunity.
Yeah.
Worship through to CAO Becker. What was the date again, Todd?
It starts on August the 18th, Councillor Harrison, next Tuesday.
Okay. I fully support it. I think it's great.
Yeah, I think.
Thank you.
Okay, and I don't think it's, like the CEO said, I don't think we necessarily need a motion, but I think you have support of council, and
Yep.
it's their time off, and they're gonna donate for it. Okay, any other questions on that action control? If not, then motion to accept for information. Thank you,
I
Councillor.
so move we accept this report for information.
Thank you, Councillor Reberger. All in favor of the motion? Carried. Thank you. Okay, moving on to the COVID-19 update, ECC objectives.
So ACC, being the Emergency Coordination Center, council continues to meet every Wednesday. There has been some reporting out of different municipalities slowing down on their ECC or stopping it until necessary. We met as ECC last Wednesday, and the group decided that it's best that we maintain every Wednesday just to maintain that communication from an internal perspectives regarding COVID-19, and as well as the external information, whether it's from government or what have you. So it does allow us to have conversations, what's going on with COVID, and kind of tie back into administration onto advice to council. There is an opinion I made really to ECC, and I didn't really have any pushback on it because ECC continues to be a little bit, quite a bit insecure with COVID, and how easily it could force us into really being vulnerable in our services, especially as we move into flu and cold season, how that's gonna create some confusion on what really are we dealing with right now. And also on more on the economic development side of things, and just doing some preliminary research as we advance into budget and some of the risk analysis. One note I wanted to make, that within an RBC report, it stated that the Canada Emergency Response Benefit, CERB, the national spending is twice as high as lost wages, which kind of tells me that it's maybe a false sense of security for recovery. We're speaking of recovery, but I just think we're in recovery and advancing government dollars to advance our communities. But really, is it a secured sense of recovery? And that's just my own opinion, highly debated on what you think of this, but it's really those points has to be considered as we consider risk moving into our current operations as well as 2021 budget moving forward. So just again, my opinion. Other than that, if council has any questions on ECC and in relation to this report, I'd be happy to answer your questions.
I have one. In preparation for the school season starting up and such, there's going to be, obviously there's going to have to be a lot of education through AHS and the school board, but is that going to impact our part of it, or the community part of it? Todd, have you seen anything that?
Your worship, to your question, we have not engaged with the school boards. It's something we'll need to do.
Yeah.
How that'll affect the town will be if something happens within their school year, and how that could be put back into the community.
Yeah.
So I would anticipate there will be some dialogue with the school boards very soon.
Yeah. Okay. Any other discussion on the?
Your Worship,
COVID.
through to CAO Becker, I know masks are quite controversial throughout the province, and a number of municipalities are making it mandatory. Has there been any discussion at your committee level about going forth about mandatory masks or wearing of masks?
Your worship, Councillor Harrison, really we're following what's asked us to our consideration from the chief medical officer. So if government's making mandatory, that's what we would follow. We have not considered going anything above or different. Obviously, each program, each facility it goes through a risk assessment. There may be times that we cannot achieve that 6 feet or 2 meter distancing, then masks are required. But that is a requirement through chief medical officer and the government. So right now for a public, in certain facilities or public facilities, we're not asking council or ECC to give that consideration at this given time, but it can depends on the fluctuation of the cases in Innisfail. Right now, what I've read is we have two cases with 2 recovery. So if those advance, then we certainly need to have those serious conversations.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions of that group, ECC? If not, would someone like to move we adopt the report?
Your worship, I'll make the motion that we adopt the CAO or the COVID-19 report.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Barkley. All in favor of the motion? Carried, thank you. Information regarding 9/11 EMS dispatch services. Looks like Mr. Becker's on the stand again.
This report is information I thought is relevant enough to really highlight it. It's a letter from Alberta Health Services stating that 4 municipal run dispatch services are being consolidated into 3 super dispatch services. So Calgary, Lethbridge, Red Deer, and Municipality of Wood Buffalo will be consolidated into the Northern Communications Center in Peace River, Southern Communications Center in Calgary and the Central Communications Center in Edmonton. So there has been given notice to these dispatch services. So it does affect our area and region through EMS will be dispatched through Calgary. It will not affect the fire or police services. So I know there is some feedback through Alberta Urban Municipalities Association in disagreement of the province, the government not engaging community properly to make these decisions, and it's based on funding. I think there's several $1 million to be saved for this consolidation. So I felt it's best that you're aware of this, and if you have any items you would like to advance in your conversations beyond local onto a provincial government, if you have concerns with this, you have that right to create that voice. So it's a FYI for council.
Yeah, well, I've certainly, and I think most of us have been receiving the emails from AUMA and their concerns with, there hadn't been too much consultation with municipalities in this regard, and I'm not sure quite of the impact, the negative impact that they're considering of it, but I don't know if, have you been following that?
Well, Your Worship, just from what I understand, the reason it wasn't done before in 2013 had a lot to do with the rural communities, properties. So everybody has the blue sign, of course, but nobody necessarily knows what the blue sign says. And there's an emergency, people are kind of hyped up, of course, and oh, where do you live? Oh, you know, by the White Rock or something out in the country. But so that is what I understand is why it never went through before. There was quite a backlash from rural areas. And I don't know whether we have had any dialogue with Red Deer or Mayor Veer. I know she's quite concerned about it, obviously, from what I've seen anyway in the news. But I'm not sure if we should be maybe reaching out to Red Deer to see if they would like some support on this issue, or
I haven't heard an awful lot of, other than through AUMA, the correspondence and discussions they're having with the province. Councillor Ebert?
Just because I don't know, where are the ambulances dispatched for Innisfail right now? Red Deer? Okay. I mean, I've called an ambulance. It didn't occur to me that it mattered where they were answering from.
Well, I think we'll just listen on and see how the negotiations go and discussions, but when's the proposal for this change?
In 180 days or
Yeah.
175 days. I will do a call out to Red Deer County Administration just to see what they're
Yeah.
picking up.
Just for additional FYI, I guess just working in that system, it will create some problems. We had problems with, when I was working in Red Deer, just different dispatches and them not knowing addresses, as Councillor Barkley said. So it does create some problems. So it's kind of a catch-22 because we need to start looking at how we're going to save money, but it will create. And when you have fire and police dispatched separately from EMS, it also creates some issues in timing, etc. So there is that concern, and I know the union of the Red Deer Union is looking at it as well. So.
Yeah. Do you need a motion?
Not for me. Well,
I don't think you need-
FYI, or sorry,
Yeah,
information.
It's an information item, I think. Okay. All right, well, if there's no further discussion, we'll move on to Community Services 6.1, and that being the Innisfail Twin Arena reopening plan.
I guess it's my turn.
Come on up. Turn your mic on.
I tried to sit at the back of the room so no one would notice, but I got caught anyways.
Can't hide.
So, like the aquatic center, we have to look at a staged approach to opening the arena, just based off of the COVID guidelines from Alberta Health Services and what we have to follow in order to protect our staff and patrons while in the facility. So, there's quite a few things that I had to take into consideration in developing the plan. I also visited 5 different municipalities and made contact with another one just to kind of see what their opening plan was and to see if we were in close proximity to what they're doing. 4 of the 6 are opening with the same plan that we are. So no dressing room usage, no spectators. I've rejigged the plan for seating in the lobby so we can accommodate 25. That was a little bit of feedback that we got from figure skating, is that one of their groups, I think, had 25 in their group. So I went and remeasured and allocated space for that 25. So minimal feedback from minor hockey. Once we increased that number to 25, they were quite happy. If Hockey Alberta allows them to proceed, they'll have enough room to be able to do some sort of tryout at each age group. So, yeah.
How will minor hockey operate without dressing rooms?
We've allocated space in the lobby, so we have chairs spaced 6 feet apart in the lobby, and the expectation is that they come ready to play except for skates. So they'll have a chair once they enter, take their shoes off, put their skates on, enter the playing surface, and then the exact opposite when they leave.
Your worship, through to Trish, tell me about skates on the floor in the lobby.
We
Is
will
that-
either have to look at matting.
Okay,
Penhold is actually just renting carpets from the cleaning company, or we look at instructing minor hockey that their patrons have to wear skate guards.
okay, and then with respect to spectators, parents, are they spectators or they can stay?
They're considered as spectators, yeah. So it will be
So they cannot stay?
exactly. This is just a preliminary. So if we were to open, if we had our ice in and we were to open tomorrow,
Yeah,
this is what we're looking at. 1, we don't know how much cleaning time it's gonna take. 2, we don't know how many people we're gonna get. So that all kind of plays into the equation of what's that cleaning time going to look like. It's any contact area that any patron would touch. So bathrooms in between groups, all the chairs, the players' benches, gates. It's quite a bit when you look at it, and we have to figure out kind of what time that's gonna take before we start advancing the plan.
do you have a concern with no spectators, like for the younger kids? That seems a bit off to me.
I've been at a couple rinks, the parents aren't very happy about it,
Yeah,
but if the kids wanna play and the parents want them to play, it's the way around it. Is it a favorable option? Absolutely not.
so is that an HS directive that
No,
no spectators?
it's
Or
not.
It's not,
No.
okay.
Mary, oh, go ahead.
Your worship, to Trish, what was you said that you had visited a couple other municipalities. What were the other 2 kind of objectives that they were going through? You said some were doing what we're going to be doing. What were some of the other options that were out there?
So Sylvan Lake's using dressing rooms right now. They're having their hockey camp, so their dressing rooms are easier to manage. They've broken it up so there's social distancing in their dressing rooms. So capacity of dressing rooms is 10, but it's the same group using that dressing room throughout the day. So there's no need to clean in between. If there is a need to clean in between, they've staggered the groups far enough to be able to give the cleaning team ample time to clean that room before the next group goes in. Sylvan's also using or allowing spectators. They have a separate viewing area with limited numbers that they're allowed to use. So the South Rink, I don't know if they have names for them or not, but the South Rink actually has seated seats, so they're not bleachers, they're actual seats. And then on the north side of that, they have basically a concrete mezzanine with just some boarded seats there. That's the area that they're allowing them in. Again, social distance, so.
And then my only other question was, is it going, like is it there gonna be distinctive exit and entrance, or are they going to be using the front door? Are we gonna use a side door, or what's the?
So there is a separate entrance from exit. The entrance would be the main entry, and then the exit would be that west exit out of the lobby area there.
Thank you.
Mayor Romaine, through to Trish. So a couple questions. The little guys that aren't able to tie their skates, it's gonna be a concern, right, if they're not
Yep.
allowed in there?
So what we're doing in that instance is the parent is allowed to come in, tie the skates, and then they would have to leave the facility.
Okay,
And then vice versa on the exit. The coach would let the parents in through that west door, remove the skates, and then go.
okay, so, and, my next question or concern is we just had a comment and we've all along followed AHS's guidelines as to what we're doing, throughout this, pandemic. So now how come all of a sudden we're going above and beyond everything that AHS is saying and not allowing, if other towns are allowing spectators and use of dressing rooms, why is Innisfail doing it not the same?
So there's only 2 that I contacted that are actually allowing dressing rooms and spectators. So we're not that far off of what everyone else is doing. We're pretty on par. My reasoning for it is we don't know what that cleaning and disinfection is going to look like.
Okay, it sounds off to me, because if we've got parents and dressing rooms and stuff that we can use, and we have extra, if we need to do extra work, I personally think that we've been following AHS's guidelines all along. Let's get the arena open to the maximum that we can do it, and let's get moving forward, in my opinion.
Okay, Councillor Bates.
Yes, just mostly comments, I guess. I read in the Mountain View News, I think that I get on email that I think it was a feature on Sundry that was saying, you know, most municipalities are feeling their way here, and I assume that this will evolve. And as I look at everything that we've done, it's evolved. And even outside of town stuff, the golf club, it evolved. I would say if the ice users are okay with that as a start, then let's evolve. And I even know, like, just from talking to a friend of mine who initially Penhold's regulations, he was told, like he's with the Silver Selects or whatever, that they wouldn't use dressing rooms, and now they're hearing they will. So whatever you put in print or see in print from another town, it's going to change. And so I guess I'm, as long as administration and Trish feel that they're empowered to change as it goes and doesn't have to wait to hear from council and that sort of thing, then I'm satisfied with it.
I guess the CEO Becker, Councillor Carrott's comments and whatever other comments might come from this, would you reconsider, go back and look at your plans for the arena facility, if there's any further things we could do to advance it a little further, or what is your thought on that?
My thought is, right now, is to support what's being delivered to you
Yeah.
through Trish.
Okay.
I signed the report, so meaning I support her decisions, her advice to council and to myself. But we could be in for a week and it could be modified. We did this with the pool, making adjustments as we go, as long as we have council support ultimately. We have an obligation to the users as well as our staff. So I think it's a good start. It's a little going to create some difficulty, but it could change very quickly based on people's willingness to do what's asked of them.
To cooperate.
So I think it's a good start.
So what is when are you looking at starting the arena?
So the ice plant will be turned on August 28th, which is a Friday. And then we'll start ice on that Monday, have ice ready for first users September 14th.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So, one surface, yeah. So we do have quite a bit of time here between
Yeah.
now and then. I know it doesn't seem like a lot of time, especially when I'm thinking of putting ice in 2 weeks, but things are changing and they're changing fast. So I've made contact with individuals in each of the facilities. They're assuring me that once they change their plan, they will let me know, and then we can go from there. So
I think if it's a proposal by administration that we go this route, that we at least get the doors open and get it rolling, and then see how we can work with it by extending the services to some degree. But I'm sure you'll stay on top of that, Trish.
Your worship, through to Trish, just for clarification, just so we can explain to people, so that I would assume the concern with spectators in the stands is, you would have to clean all those surfaces in between people going in and out of.
absolutely.
Yeah. So it's kind of hard to cordon off an area and say you can sit here 2 meters apart, and now you have to clean half the stands. Okay.
Okay, well, I think we have a proposal by the staff to reopen the arena under these conditions. Is there any further discussion? And would someone like to consider a motion to support the staff in this reopening report?
Your worship, I'll make the motion that council accepts the arena reopening plan as presented.
Thank you, Councillor Hill. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor of the motion? Opposed? Okay, let it know that it was passed by majority. Okay. Moving back on to actually, we still got to do the arena rules and regulations policy.
Yeah, you're not rid of me yet.
I just about skipped that.
You could have just glazed over it. I'd be okay with it.
Go ahead.
All right, so this is a proposal basically for some rules and regulations at the arena, starting to formalize things and turn some, I guess, loose guidelines into policy. That way we have your support when staff come in and say, X group did X amount of damage in the dressing room. What do we do with it? We have a policy to go back on so the staff feels supported in decisions that they're making. A few highlights of it are alcohol is permitted in the arena during Alberta Gaming and Liquor Commission sanctioned events only. It's a rule, it has been a rule for a really long time. It's a rule that's often forgotten. We know what happens in arenas. It is what it is, but when it gets out of hand, it turns into a problem for the people that are working. A minimum of 2 coaches or designated adults should be in the dressing room with individuals under the age of 18. I know that's a sticking point for a few because it is awkward to be there as an adult watching kids, but I feel that it's part of Hockey Alberta's ruling that they are to be the supervisors of that group. I did have a discussion with Stephen Bates about being in the dressing room of a midget team, and it's stand at the entryway. You can stand at the entryway with your back to the kids. It's a request that we're asking. Another one is the dressing room usage, so indicating timelines on how long people are allowed to be in the dressing rooms. We do tend to lose track of time once we're in the dressing room and we're having a good time with our buddies and like to hang out a little bit longer. The other one with that is that there will be a surcharge for any damages done to that room. Just last season alone, we had 4 broken mirrors and 2 plugged toilets. Going back onto the teams, I think, is only fair. It's a way for them to kind of keep control of the situation that they're being given. So.
Any other questions of those rules and regs?
Your worship, through to Trish, when the arena is booked, do teams get a list of how to behave literature, or?
So basically, the way that I'm looking at doing it is this would go out at our ice users meeting.
Okay.
So it would go out to the men's groups, it would go out to minor hockey, figure skating, and then from there, it's that organization's group to filter it down through to their coaching staff.
Yeah, okay.
Your worship, I have
For Bates?
just one question through to Trish. Just watching some of the composition of some of the teams, the one rule with the 2 adults might get to be a bit of a, if you just make it a hard and fast rule, it might be a bit of a problem if you have like a team that has 2 or 3, let's say, girls, and they go off to those smaller dressing rooms. That might be an issue, I would think. And you know, one of the problems would be the coaching staff, for instance, they're males, or you know, you might just look at that and make sure that it all fits.
Yeah, and I did give that some thought. There might be some wording in there that we could change, that they must be in proximity to the dressing room in those instances when there is a girl on the team. You'd have to be close enough that you could hear what was going on in the room. We're basically trying to avoid the horseplay, the damage, the bullying, the teasing that goes on when an adult isn't around.
Yeah. And I would think minor hockey has some pretty strict guidelines too on.
Well, I think their main guideline is they have to have 2 because of the,
Yeah, but they must be.
that if they go in, they have to go in 2s. They can't go in
No.
because of the potential
Yeah.
child abuse problems that everybody, yeah.
Mayor Romaine, through to Trish. I'm all in favor of it. Looks good. My one concern is we start to, have these 30 minutes end of time limits, and then you say, a $75 fine. There will be no warnings. Which is fine. We need to enforce what we're bylaws on. But I hope we sometimes tend to get these bylaws in place, and then it's hard and fast, and I think we need to take a bit of a soft approach and make sure, that we're not just kicking people.
I agree to some degree. There are teams, and they know who they are, that abuse that, and staff have mentioned multiple times, okay guys, it's time to go.
Yeah.
Okay guys, it's time to go. I'm not saying they're sitting there with a stopwatch going,
Yeah, and that's what I'm getting at,
your
because
30 minutes are up, here's your fine.
That is what tends to happen, and let's not forget, these are our clients, right?
No,
So,
absolutely.
yeah.
So at that 30 minutes, there would be that warning, and that's kind of going to be the grace period of, okay, guys, it's time to go.
Yeah.
If
I can
they
appreciate
decide not to vacate, then we would look at the charge.
Your worship, through to Trish. Yeah, great document, and I think we all need rules, and I fully support. My comment is number 2. I'd like to commend you. I believe this is our first sort of formal note in any bylaw about racism and discriminatory language. So I'd just like to commend you and your staff for getting that in there. So thank you very much.
Thank you, but I can't take credit for it.
Okay, any other questions? Well, would someone like to move that we adopt these rules and regulations as presented by the facility manager?
I so move, Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Carrot. Further discussion? No? All in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move on to the 7.1, which is discussion of the public notification bylaw, 1644-2020. Is anyone prepared to make a motion at this time, or? And to open for discussion.
I move we give second reading to bylaw 1644, 2020 as presented.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Reberger. Discussion.
Your worship, through, I guess through the council and through to the people that came today, to Chuck, Myrna and Murray, have heard what you said, and so I've been thinking about it a lot during this meeting, and I guess I want to make sure in this bylaw that we're still going to use the newspaper, because I can see how important it is to people in our community, and so I feel a little bit uneasy right now knowing what that may look like, and wondering if, Megan, you have anything to add to that, or any kind of assurance that yes, we're absolutely going to put a map in the newspaper and people will know where it is, and it doesn't change that much, but we're still using the website.
I guess I can offer my reassurance that the motivation of the bylaw is certainly not to save money on the advertisements. It was to enhance our ability to explain these bylaws when they go out, because you know, this is probably one of the best public hearing turnouts we've had in a while. So that we do tend to get some confusion, and I don't know how well those existing notices get the point across. That if we can utilize the town voice and start making the website a bit more of a place where people can get more information, that we can go that way. It also allows us to use social media to link to the website, those types of things, where right now we don't typically use social media for things like rezoning applications. They don't go on there. Yeah, I guess that's what I can offer you.
So really using both. I mean, the social media is fine, but like we heard from
Yeah, we wouldn't be
Murray and
using
Myrna
that
today,
exclusively,
that
but
they're not, they don't, or Myrna's not using social media,
No.
period, and I'm not gonna stereotype people that are over 65, because lots of them are very technical savvy, but there's people that are 20 that don't use social media, so that's I guess all I want to say is I just want to make sure that we're not giving up the print.
it would still be in print. It will likely be within that town voice, unless it was a really large change that we thought it was worthwhile to take the additional space. But I think when you go through that now, I would think a lot of our residents go to the town voice page and take that as where they get kind of the information, where these other rezoning ones tend to get sort of placed wherever they fit throughout the rest of the paper. But again, if that's council's wishes to keep doing those, we can certainly keep using the paper as that first mode of communication.
Okay, Councillor Carrot.
Yeah, a little bit of reiteration, but I think that moving this way, we can actually make in the paper, and again, I want the intent not to be away from the paper. I don't think the intent was to save costs, again, like we said. But I think we can actually make it more user-friendly in the paper, as we said, because it's not such legal mumble jumble. But I want to make sure that we do use it. And I also want to make sure that the people that are watching that, and if it doesn't work, whichever way we vote, then we can bring it forward and possibly go back. And then after this, I'd like to make a motion that, I know we're 6 months, but maybe we put another motion after this one that we can revisit this in a shorter period of time. But yeah, and again, the other thing I want to say is there was a comment about we do have time, but on one hand, we're kind of in a catch-22 because we get a lot of complaints because we don't move forward quick enough and we need to get things done. And then on the other hand, we do have time. So it is a bit of a juggling act in that regard too. But I think the one can enhance the other is the way I'm really looking at it.
Okay, Councillor Bates?
Yes, Your Worship, I have a lot of faith in this council and this administration that if, and that we won't do the things that certain people have been afraid we'll do, that we'll recheck ourselves and yeah, I have a lot of faith that this will work and that we won't abuse anything that way. So I support the motion.
Councillor Hill.
Yes, your worship. Yeah, I would agree with all of council that it's very, it goes without saying that newspaper is very valuable to us and our surrounding area. And I definitely, the way I viewed it was that by instating this bylaw would kind of streamline things for administration to kind of make some things a little more efficient for for instance, when I sat on MPC, there was a number of different topics that always got brought up saying, you know, this is an extra 2 weeks, an extra week here. And yes, we might be able to wait for that, but that particular citizen or business owner, that could be very crucial. So if there's a way that we can speed up a process with being efficient but thorough, I definitely would like to see that as well. But yeah, no, I definitely think that the newspaper is very, very valuable, and I don't think we could function without it, so.
Any other question or comment? Councillor Reberger.
Yeah, I'm in support of this, and I'm the same mindset as Councillor Bates. I think we can trust our administration to do what they've told us they're gonna do, and I'm not uncomfortable at all going forward with this, because I believe as well that the newspaper's part of the process, but it's not the only part of the process. So, and I think we can get more information out through the website with putting it out in the paper, and if it interests you in the paper, then you follow up and get more information, and I think it'll work.
Thank you, Your Worship. I see this strategy as a tool to support what we already have. So I would support it with the consciousness that if it goes sideways, that we bring it back and we get it fixed. I enjoy reading the newspaper. Every Tuesday morning, I look forward at 9:30 for my newspaper delivery lady to come and put it on my doorknob. And I love sitting down with my morning coffee to read it. It does have a lot of good information in it. And I think that we would be losing something as a small town if we lost the newspaper. Again, I reiterate that it was never, my impression was that it was never intended to do away with it, the newspaper advertising at all. It was to supplement the tools that we have now in place so that we could get more public engagement, for a better word. So so I would support this second reading, and with the consciousness that we're going to have to police ourselves into the future. Thank you.
Okay, well, if there's no further discussion, I'll ask the question then. Those in favor of the motion? Carried. Is someone prepared to make a motion that we proceed to third and final reading for this bylaw? Or do we need that motion? Just the third reading.
Your Worship, I'll move that we give third reading to bylaw 1644-2020 as presented.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion? Carried. Thank you.
Your Worship, I'd like to make a motion that we revisit this within, do we have to, just a clarification, do we have to set a time limit on that? Within the next 3 months, in 3 months to revisit this particular bylaw and perhaps get more public feedback if there's a problem.
Okay, motion is to put a 3-month review on this motion. Any discussion? I will allow for a bit of discussion, but I think I understand what you're meaning to do, Councillor Caird, but I honestly think that we would automatically review something that wasn't working and revisit all of our decisions, as we may not have done perfectly, but it's an ongoing.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. We just passed a bylaw saying that we can't revisit it within 6 months. So I would just like to say that we can revisit it a little sooner than that, 6 months at this point.
Okay, as a clarification to that motion though too, Councillor Carrot, I think that's in that you don't have someone keeps bringing the same motion up continually. If you bring something up and it's defeated, you can't bring it up for another 6 months. But I think anything that we do, Councillor Carrot, I think is reviewable on a majority of council, but.
Sure, I respect that. I'm just, we
Yeah.
just heard that this is one of our biggest public hearings, and to the respect of that, I think it warrants having a sooner discussion.
Very good. Any discussion? Those in favor of the motion? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. All right, moving on to bylaw 1470A69, application for rezoning.
Okay, so this bylaw is a landowner requested amendment to redesignate 4002 49th Avenue from R2 medium density to RT residential transition district. Let's roll down so everybody, if you're not familiar with the property, you can have a look there. So the property is currently designated R2 medium density in the land use bylaw and indicated for residential uses within the municipal development plan. The R2 district provides for duplexes and single-family houses as permitted uses with a range of other uses including adult care, bed and breakfast, childcare, group homes, and row housing as discretionary uses. The applicant is proposing to change the zoning to allow for the use of the property for a flooring and renovation business consisting of a retail showroom, offices, and storage of equipment and materials. The applicant is not intending to live on the site. So the RT district is intended, and this is just straight out of the land use bylaw, to support the incremental redevelopment of areas between the adjacent commercial corridor and the greater residential areas of town. The uses should buffer residential uses from the commercial core by minimizing traffic, parking, lighting, and hours of operation. To enhance the compatibility with the residential surroundings, development is encouraged to utilize existing buildings, and the Development Authority may consider a combination of various uses on a single parcel. Council will recall that this RT district was created specifically to provide a type of transitional space between the downtown area and the larger residential parts of town. So the RT district provides for duplexes, single-family dwellings, secondary suites, offices, and personal services as permitted uses, and a range of uses such as business support services, arts and crafts studios, retail sales, restaurants, health services, group homes, bed and breakfast, and mixed uses as discretionary uses. The RT district explicitly prohibits outdoor open storage. So the subject property is surrounded by R2 residential consisting of single-family homes, duplexes, and a small apartment building and a church to the north. That's the orange area within the picture. R1B residential consisting primarily of single-family homes to the southwest. And highway commercial, the Bluebird Motel directly to the south and east across the lanes. Motel doors as part of the Bluebird exit directly onto that lane across from the property. So the property currently has a single-family home with extensive garage space, including a double front attached and additional attached space accessed off the side lane. The dwelling is quite unique in its size and surrounding uses. The home has been used in the past for home occupations related to vehicle restoration and services. Complaints have been received over the years related to outdoor storage and noise related to those operations. So the report includes, so there's a street view picture of the property, as well as the aerial photo. You can see the Bluebird Motel directly across the lanes, and then a basic floor plan showing the main floor of the residence, and then the very extensive indoor garage storage that exists on the property. So with respect just to some of the considerations that go along with this bylaw. So traffic, commercial uses typically generate more traffic than residential uses. The property is on 49th Ave, which is a collector road, and sees traffic running north-south through the community. The current application does address only zoning, and any conditions or concerns directly related to various uses would need to be addressed upon development permit approval. And these could include things such as hours of operation or clients on site at any given time. The land use bylaw also outlines parking requirements for various uses. Again, without details on the various uses and how they could be laid out within the building, it's difficult to determine if sufficient parking is available. However, the site does have a large front hard surface driveway with room for approximately 5 vehicles, plus the extensive indoor spaces, as well as street parking to the south along the east side of 49th, where there's the commercial buildings. Again, things that would be considered with the development permit. Landscaping and aesthetics, the RT district does have landscaping requirements similar to other residential districts, and this yard also has substantial mature trees and substantial hedging, buffering it from adjacent properties. Mixed uses are provided for in the RT. So a mixed use development refers to the combination of 2 or more uses in a single building or area to create a more vibrant and livable space. Mixed use often provides opportunities for the reuse of existing buildings while matching the visual character of the neighborhood. So redevelopment and investment in existing neighborhoods can be achieved at the incremental scale, minimizing the risk of incompatibilities and allowing for change to occur more slowly. So the applicant's submission was for the rezoning itself from R2 to the RT. Based on the applicant's current business and some of our conversations, staff is recommending that council consider an addition to the requested amendment to add contractor services minor use to the list of discretionary uses in the RT district, just to make sure that we cover all the bases for what the intended plan is when we get to the development permit stage, so that we don't go through all this work and then not find that the definition quite works the way it should. So contractor services minor is defined as a development used in the delivery and support of construction-related activities. Typical uses include, but are not limited to, building construction, surveying, electrical, heating, plumbing, or similar services of a construction nature which do not require outdoor on-site storage or space for materials. So we have approved in the past through MPC businesses of this type as home occupations, so general contractors, plumbers, those types of uses we have approved as home ocs, so it's not as though we haven't looked at this type of use in a residential setting. And due to the prohibition of outdoor storage in that definition, it's also consistent with the RT district. So it is felt this use definition is probably what's most accurate to describe the applicant's intent, with retail and office uses in addition to that use. Any other combination of uses would be evaluated as well through the development permit process. So at this time, we're requesting council grant first reading to bylaw A69 as amended, with that addition of the contractor services minor as a discretionary use. And that Monday, September 14th, there's just a typo there on the screen, at 1 p.m. in council chambers be set as the public hearing date.
Yes, your worship, I would grant first reading of bylaw 1470-A69 as amended to include, I believe it was contractor minor to be included in that as well.
Do we want a second motion for the public hearing? Can I just include that in the first motion?
If council's
Yeah.
wanting to pass it, you can.
Okay,
If council's there.
Yes, your worship, I would also extend that motion to read that council sets September 14th, 2020 at 1 p.m. at the council chambers for the public hearing
Okay,
for
thank you.
said bylaw.
All right, we have a motion to consider the staff recommendation. Discussion.
Yes, your worship, just to Megan, so there's, with it being, not being able, like, it can be lived in or it cannot be lived in, is it just because of the parking configuration, or?
It can be lived in.
Okay.
Just the applicant isn't intending to live there, so
Right.
it couldn't be looked at as a home occupation.
I see, okay,
The way you could look at it if they were going to live and work on the same site.
right, okay, thank you.
Your worship, through
Yes.
to Megan, I guess further to Councillor Hill's question, there's reference to a bed and breakfast somewhere down the road. Now, would that trigger a residence there for somebody to look after the bed and breakfast part of the operation?
So that could, and again, that would be through a development permit. It's
Okay.
difficult at this time with all the potential uses. The applicant is in the gallery if council is interested. But yeah, a bed and breakfast could have a residence component. You could have a suite of some sort in here with the other uses as well.
I guess further to that then, so the initial development permit, would it include the potential of a bed and breakfast
Not if they
So
weren't
that-
gonna do that right away.
right away? So
No.
down the road, they'd
That
have,
would be an additional permit if 2 years down the road they wanted to add that.
okay. And then that residence caretaker kind of condition would be added at that time?
Yeah, you
Or
bet.
considered, okay, thank you.
Councillor Reber.
Just a question through to CAO Becker. Right now, our council meetings are at 1 PM on a trial basis for 2 months, ending at the end of August. So if we set this at 1 o'clock, does that tie us to that? Just asking.
That's a great question, Councilor Reberger. I guess we have to continue going at 1 o'clock. It's, I think we'll advertise. I think the intent would be that, the applicant is here, he's hearing the conversation that, it could be at 6 o'clock on that specific day, September 14th. So I think we still fall within the parameters of your governance, so I think we're okay.
Add, because Vanessa and I did have the conversation about this, because I believe you're supposed to discuss on the 24th would be when you're supposed to revisit and decide that if we had to change it, we would still have time to do
If we
the
just-
notifications.
The motion, it can say that it's, public hearing will be held on that day, but
Yeah.
at that council meeting, that date.
Correct.
Get here to 1, you'll be a little early, that's all. Okay, further discussion.
Yes, your worship, I think it's a great opportunity to grow a business, and I think that it's a great unique location that would be nice to not see vacant anymore, so.
Your worship, through to council, I guess my only concern is fitting into 13 Ways vision for our community. We just have been through how many meetings that we need to start having some community planning here where we don't have stuff strewn all over town. And I question how this fits into that overall plan. We are now going to take a nice residential house and turn it up to a business that end of town, and that's my only concern. So I'm just trying to wrap my head all around that. And when are we going to turn the corner and start to maybe plan a little more deliberately in Innisfail?
Councillor Bates.
Your worship, through to Councillor Barclay's concern, I thought about that too, but I guess when I look at it, as opposed to some of the other things that have happened in the town, the request is to change it to residential transition, which kind of seems to fit in that area, as opposed to, plugging in a whole new. It sounds like it's kind of been used very much towards that for a long time anyway, and again, I guess we can proceed, see what public hearing comes up with, and it's first reading that we're talking about. It seems like, to me, it's not, nothing's comparable, but I don't see it departing from the 13 ways as I've understood it, but it's, yeah, I agree, it's a bit of a, you have to look at it, but I'm good with proceeding through first reading.
Any other discussion?
Mayor Romaine, I have a question
Yes.
for, and I should know his name, and he's gonna give me Tyrell. Thank you. Shipments coming in through the front or another?
Coming in the alley is where the access to the shop is for doors.
So around, from this picture, it's around back?
From the picture,
Okay.
the trucks will pull up in front and we'll grab them from the alley, off the truck area.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I think, at least my experience in the past is that it's been a somewhat as a service business all along. It's not probably gonna change the traffic flow or anything like that in the future to impact the community or the neighborhood, but anyways, we have a motion to give this first reading. Is there any further discussion? Not? All in favor of the motion? Carried. Thank you. So there will be a public hearing sometime during the day of that day of August.
Now we'll be testing the previous bylaw of notification.
Okay, let's move on to 8.1. Information item, a municipal policing assistance grant. CAO Becker, our
It's me.
director.
Okay, so we thought that council should have an opportunity to review the policing assistant grant and the police officer grant. We don't always get them in to get you to see them. They did give us a very, very short timeline, and we requested to extend that. We came in on a Wednesday and wanted it signed by Friday. I think it was really fast. So we wanted you to have a chance to read it. They're pretty straightforward. The one thing that stood out for me, of course, being the money side, was we only get 50% up front as soon as we sign the contract, and the rest of the 50% not till December 31st of 2020, which is something has never been in play before. We always got our funds all at one time. So that did stand out to me, not surprising with what's gone on and in the world of finance these days. So that one totally made sense. Otherwise, they're pretty much the same as they always have been. So we just wanted council to get their eyes on it and to provide it to you as information.
Okay, is someone prepared to make a motion on the staff recommendation? Okay, Councillor Reberger, thank you. Discussion? I guess it's not a negotiation process. This is the way it'll be.
No, and just a reminder, we get 263,000 from the one and 100,000 from the second one.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, any discussion? No? Is this any change of from last year, say 2019?
Oh,
Based on the
exactly the same.
number?
Exactly the same, yep.
Okay, thank you. All in favor of the motion? Carried. Thanks, Heather. Correspondence 9.1. International Day of the Old People. What the hell?
Definition?
Your worship, through to CAO Becker, point number 5 there, Tiffany Tunkey and chickens. When I read the email, and I just need more clarification or better understanding. We go back, the survey was conducted, I understand the survey was flawed. And the motion was not to allow chickens within our community. That was about 1.5 years ago. Now there's a formal request, as I read it, for council to address it again. The question I have, CAO Becker, is where does that put us as council? How do we recognize this individual who's requested of council to review it? Or is it just, it's a email and we just sort of shrug it off? Like I just need clarification.
Your worship, Councillor Harrison, that's really a question back to council. How do you wish to respond to this correspondence? I debate a little bit, Councillor, that the survey was flawed. Administratively, who rolled out that survey would not indicate that survey was flawed. However, council, public have indicated that survey is flawed, but administratively, we do not consider the survey flawed.
Okay, I apologize for that assumption then, but that's what I heard. So with that then, are the options to readdress this? It's been past the 6-month kind of timeline that we've voted on to reintroduce a motion, or what do we do? I guess that's a question to council.
I'll speak to that. I personally have no interest to revisit this. We've been down the road, and everybody, what I keep hearing is I would allow chickens as long as it's not next to me. Well, it doesn't work that way. So I have no interest to revisit it. I think we can address the email, and that's my opinion as one vote.
I guess through to Councillor Carrot, and I'm just playing the devil's advocate here, we could flip that around, and the people that I've been talking to, they would love to have 4 chickens. So I guess that's the dilemma that I'm having, is where do we go to from here? We have a council of 1.5 years ago, based on their feedback, their personal feedback, they're saying, no, we don't want chickens, we're not gonna do that, and we're not gonna revisit it. Now, that's...
I think, for your information, I think, Councillor Harrison, I think any councillor has the absolute right to give notice of a motion if they're prepared to open this up again and for consideration. By all means, that's your right as a councillor. You can make that motion. I would suggest a notice of motion, but anyways, it's not that if we want to reopen it, there's no statute of limitations or anything on it. I think other than it's the 6-month thing.
I was just looking for more clarification, because this is the first time that something like this that I've seen come back up. That
you can put it to the test of council, and if they support it, we'd reopen it and proceed with the reconsideration.
Your worship, through to Councillor Harrison, I wonder if the best way to proceed would be to have administration gather some data, some research from other communities that have gone forward with this. I think there's Lacombe and Red Deer, Edmonton, et cetera, and see what their experience has been. And, maybe if it was something that happened, it would be 10 licenses or whatever to start with. But, I would like to hear what the experience has been in other communities.
Thank you.
Councillor Bates,
Yes, Your Worship, I'd like to confess to being the one that has labeled the survey as being flawed, because I do believe it was, because I was able to enter 3 opinions. As far as revisiting it, I don't have a real problem with that. When I go back and look at the situation that confronted me at the time, because I knew that and I think the numbers were, oh goodness, I think we only had response in the survey, let's call it a valid survey, of 7%, and that was so small. At the time, I had nobody telling me personally that they were in favor. Since then, I've had a few people actually say to me, you know, I was disappointed that you guys went that way with it. So I'm certainly willing to revisit it if there's the will to do it. The only thing I would ask is if we did another survey, that we do it like the Stantec one on Dodds Lake, where you actually enter your email and it's not even accepted unless whoever's monitoring it can make sure it isn't coming from Prince Edward Island or wherever, because before that's the way it was. And I think we need to really look at the choice of how the questions are asked, because I think it was set up. We had endless phrases that said, compared to dogs, give me chickens anytime. And I think we weren't sitting there with a good survey, let's call it. But if there's will, I would be willing to hear what other communities have done. And it's more than a year and a half ago. It's got to be, that happened probably in our first 6 months. Does anybody know what that timing is?
But just as a point of clarification, we're discussing the kind of the cart before the horse here. I'm thinking unless there's a want to revisit this, that has to be made by notice of motion or a motion, and then open for discussion and reevaluate. But Councillor Rehberger?
I think personally that we should put this to a referendum with our next municipal election, because you put something controversial on there, you get people out to vote, you get an increased turnout, and people can only vote on it once. It would be a real scientific survey that way. So that's personally what I think we should do with it.
Anyways, that's all in consideration of the if someone is willing to offer that support to reopening it.
So, Your Worship, I'd like to make the motion that we direct administration to investigate the other regional and provincial communities that allow fowl in their communities as to amounts, licenses, and bring that information back to be presented at a future council meeting.
So that's not really a motion that we're considering it. It's only to request information.
Can I strike the word consider? We're looking for information, Your Worship.
Yeah.
That's what I'm looking for.
Okay.
To support or not to support fowl.
Okay.
So.
Okay, does everybody understand the motion?
I'd ask that the vote be recorded, Your Worship.
Thank you. Then those in favor? Opposed? Noted. No, I was in favor. Councillor Rehberger and Councillor Carrot were opposed. I'm certainly willing to give a discussion, that's for sure. The other thing is, I think out of these correspondence, they've requested a proclamation of October 1st as International Day of Old Persons.
Older.
I can't because I'm in conflict, so.
Older than what?
Your Worship, I would make that motion.
Okay, thank you. And I think it should, how about a 50% discount on? Anyways, no. All in favor of the motion? Carried, thank you. No one opposed? No? Okay. Anything else on those correspondence? That MSP, do we have much on that yet, Mr. Becker?
No, Your Worship, the program was just released. You have the information there. The town of Innisfail will receive, I think, just over 932,000. Administration has taken that information. We're gonna come back to you with some potential proposals to meet that October 1st deadline for submission. So in September, you'll get a report from administration.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that'll be interesting to see what we're gonna do with that. That's not paying off our losses because of the COVID. No. Okay. All right, I think we've covered the correspondence. Do you need, I guess we need a motion for information. Would someone like to move?
I'd so move, Your Worship.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Harris. All in favor of the motion? Carried, thank you. Council reports. Councillor Hill.
Thank you, Your Worship. Haven't been up to too terribly much. I did get out to help out the football program with moving some sea cans around their yard there, and they're going to be collaborating a couple of their 9-man team with the potential 6-man peewees, and getting those unsightly tire tractors all like that were left all over the football field in one location. So that's about all I've been up to. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Bates.
I guess MPC was canceled last week. Attended 13 Ways and did follow the online Stantec Dodds Lake public discussion. It was well done. A little bit of glitch with my ability to communicate. My video was upside down, and I didn't try to use it that way, just listening. I intend to participate in the AUMA Leaders Caucus tomorrow on Zoom. I don't know, are you going to Sylvan Lake for that? Or?
That's not until the 20th.
Oh, I got that confused, sorry. I'm participating on a Zoom tomorrow. Is it a different date? Okay, thank you. And at the risk of maybe preempting Councillor Harrison, I noticed an email from Cape today asking about some good news items, and maybe we could advance the operation of the solar farm here as a good news item. That's it.
Not much to report, just attended the 13 Ways seminar. That was really it.
Yeah, 13 Ways, and then this morning the Community Coalition got together and had a dementia-friendly community meeting. Of course, it's been a little bit stalled with COVID, but they're hoping to get things back up and running here in a couple of weeks and put on a learning series, etc. Then they will wrap up in November, and then Monday we have a kind of an emergency Chamber of Commerce meeting.
Okay, I attended the Historical Village meeting last Wednesday. They did have some minor hail damage from the storm. A couple broken windows, which of course the glass in those old buildings isn't quite the glass that's in the modern buildings. They do have the one building ready to go for that they're going to put the concrete floor in is now ready to go. And they've getting the barn prepped for restoration. I also listened in on the Dodds Lake Online, and after listening to Councillor Bates' trials, I didn't attempt to put my video on. I just sat in the background and listened. Didn't want to attempt that. I also did the 13 Ways in the Park, and I did manage to pass my SDAB training, so the town didn't waste their money on that course.
Congratulations.
First attempt. 94% on an open book exam, so not perfect, but not bad.
Thank you, Your Worship. I also attended 13 Ways in the Park, the online Dodds Lake presentation. Just a note, past the ski chalet, and it's looking really good. The construction's really taking shape. And I guess we're going to assess our feedback on the afternoon meetings on the 24th, I heard. I'm also attending tomorrow the Web Municipal Leaders Caucus via Zoom. And on Wednesday, I'm going over to help the folks for Camp Day at Tim Hortons serve coffee. So stop by and buy a coffee, and all the proceeds go to children in need at their camps across Canada. So and that's about it.
Okay, I didn't, I just kind of followed along with the rest of you with the 13 ways and staying somewhat in contact with AUMA and these things that are going on, but it's going to be a testy year for sure, getting through it, but that's about all I have. I'm curious, maybe, Mr. Kennedy, do you have an update on your projects? How's
61st.
First Ave got paved today, so we are completed. We're just doing landscaping and finish on that project. And 38th Street is getting cored out this week, so we should be getting concrete there in the next probably 1 to 2 weeks, depending how that goes. So yeah, capital projects are going well.
good? Director Weimark, you got anything? No? John, you got anything? Yeah? Okay. Ken, you got anything back there? We know you're there. Stuart? You got anything?
Yeah, just a quick or just follow up. Game show host or something. Just a quick follow-up comment to your comment earlier, Your Worship, just on the ski hill. We did engage with him a few weeks ago. Is this on? Can you guys hear me? Okay. Yeah, there was some, again, there was no specific ask at the moment. They did provide some good comments and feedback, though, that we'll be discussing at the administrative level. Just a few things that might be able to, the town might be able to assist in the future. So we've got an operations technical review committee on Wednesday at which we'll be just discussing those. And that's all I've got.
Has anybody heard how the Horseshoe Club is doing in their new digs? I guess we could have. Has anybody been familiarized with them? Steve?
Yeah.
Yeah. As far as we've heard, it's going well. We have a few things that she's asked us to look at that we're working on, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Good.
I was just gonna update, because Gavin brought up the solar farm. I know that probably some of you have got calls about weeds and things. I haven't seen them yet, but apparently there's sheep there now. That there's 100 sheep and that there's going to be more sheep under the panels. So that, I haven't seen them yet though. And that there are bees there as well, that you had asked a while ago. Councillor Barkley, there are bees there as well. Yeah, the Dodds Lake engagement was last Thursday evening. And yeah, it was relatively well attended, and the stats on the website are actually quite good. We've had 368 unique users visit the site, so I think we're doing well, and that'll be open through next Friday for more feedback.
Just a quick correction, there's 500 sheep. There was
only 100 to start with.
Yeah, there's 500 currently, and there is 2 fox dens in there, so they have been identified as.
Smart.
Yeah. That's about all. I just took. Yeah.
Well, there's lots to eat because it's about 5 feet high everywhere.
Hey, Your Worship, I forgot that, if I can, I'd like to add, I just ran into a new business today, and it's just down the street from the town office. It's called Blades to Fades. It's a brand-new barber shop. It's a couple, he's from Quebec and she's from British Columbia. She's 25 years barbering. He's an apprentice, so I'll leave a couple cards here for any of us that need it. It's just right beside the School of Dance. So, thank you.
Okay, upcoming events, the Mayor Caucus stuff, or Leaders Caucus, I'm sorry. And the SRD, we're still in discussion on their situation with the advancement of their facilities. Regular council meeting is, next meeting is the 24th. There's no meeting on the 31st, is that correct? Okay. All right, I guess the next thing is we move in camera for some discussion. Someone like to move?
Your Worship, I would move that we move in camera.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Hill. Let's take a couple minutes.